Hello, welcome to Things I Should Have Already Done, Part 2. Now, before we get started and I give you the list of tasks I have for us to complete, I do have to come clean and tell you that I'm coming to you from the future. I have already done all of those chores. To my very unpleasant surprise, I filmed all of Part 2, all of the chores, all of the things with no sound. How I did that is beyond me. I was pretty devastated last night as I went to start editing the video and realized that nothing had sound. I don't even know why that's an option on the camera. Like, it's so easy to just remove sound post. Like, why is that a thing? And I had to learn how to turn it back on, so I'm not even sure how I accidentally turned it off. Anyway, I was pretty devastated and I thought a lot about how to bring this video to you because I feel committed. I made a commitment to you, to myself, to do these plant chores, and I didn't want to just come on and do part 3 and then just list the things that I did. So I do have the footage of me doing all of the things. So what I thought I would do is I would play the footage and then have me in a little square somewhere on one of the corners on the screen and explain what I'm doing and why. And yeah, I'll walk you through all of the chores that I did for part 2. Part 2 is a little bit of mishmash of things, but I'll walk you through everything and I hope that that is okay with you. Okay, so up first, I'm going to be chopping my begonia variegated snow-capped or snow-capped variegated begonia. It has such beautiful bright pink color and I feel like I finally captured that for you in this video. But basically it's growing a little unruly. They are kind of selling still for a really good price point, and recently I've been selling just on Instagram stories propagations or corms or plants that I'm moving on from, and I've really been enjoying making a little bit of extra cash, and then also it's helping declutter some of my collection or like plants I want to move on from. So that is what we're doing with this begonia. I decided like kind of the spot where I want to chop. I'm not super familiar with begonias, but I do know that you need a node and you take a stem cutting. And my particular begonia has 3 like main vines and 2 of them are already branching out. I didn't want to take too many, but I did want it to just kind of be like bushier like this versus trailing. So we're taking some cuttings, we're going to propagate in water, and then once they root and start growing, I will look into getting rid of those and hopefully making someone else very happy with this plant because it's very beautiful. Next, we are going to be chopping all the way back my Pink Princess Philodendron. I actually have 2 Pink Princesses. The one that you see now is the top cut of my original. It has pretty good genes, but I was having issues with my original. I was underwatering. I just had it in an aeroid mix in a regular pot. So I lost some of the bottom leaves or several of the bottom leaves, so I ended up chopping it, and this is the top cut. It rooted so nicely in perlite, and as of recent with the plant sales I've been doing, well, I decided I don't love the way it grows, its growth pattern, even though the color is really pretty. So I chopped, like, I think I had 2 or 3 mid cuts in a top cut of my top cutting that I have in pawn now. I just listed them up on my story sale to see if anybody would want it, and I figured if not, no problem. Then once they rooted and they were individual plants, then I could let go of them then. But people jumped on them right away, so I want to finish chopping this up all the way back so that I can prop and get rid of it. And then I'm also going to be chopping my original all the way back, and that will have several wet sticks. But I feel a little bad because it is a really beautiful plant and it does have really beautiful genes, but I just don't love it. Like, I love it when it's a certain size, and then the second it starts growing beyond that, I'm just not a fan anymore. And yeah, I will say though, growing this top cutting, I rooted it in perlite and then I grew it in pon, and it did amazing. So much better than I was ever able to achieve with it in soil or in an aeroid mix. So I don't know, if you're struggling with your Pink Princess, maybe try semi-hydro. I did end up with a few just wet sticks on my top cutting because I had lost some of the bottom leaves. And then one of the cuttings, I had to leave it as a 2-leaf cutting because I couldn't really see where the auxiliary bud was, and I didn't want to cut away the nice leaves that they were perfectly fine. So that's what I did with this top cut. Now I will say chopping your Pink Princess Philodendron is extremely messy. The sap, I call it blood because it's like bright red magenta-ish. It just keeps oozing out forever. So yeah, it's pretty messy, and I'm using this like just takeout container for the wet sticks because I'm out of my seedling trays. I did order a new seedling tray that's a little larger, and it actually comes also with a heating mat and lights. So I'm interested to see how the heating mat works, but as soon as that arrives, I am going to transfer them from this container over to that seedling tray, so stay tuned to see how that works. Another thing is I usually always, because I've propagated Pink Princess Philodendron now a number of times, and I've always used candle wax to seal the ends, and I didn't do that this time. I guess I'm just feeling a little more careless, but they're all propagating in perlite, and I'm placing them over in my laundry area under the lights I have there so that they can hopefully grow really nice. That is where I propagated previously the top cut that grew really great roots. So, and this is my original Pink Princess, so the one whose top cutting belonged to. As you can see, all of the bottom leaves are gone. It only activated one growth point, but I think that that's also my fault because I'm just bad at underwatering it. It's still in soil in a self-watering pot, but that pot it doesn't have a way to tell me that there's no more water in the reservoir, so I was still underwatering quite a bit, and I left it kind of permanently lived in my laundry area since I chopped it that first time. So yeah, it was just kind of forgotten. But doing the same thing, chopping it all the way back, individual nodes, saving the leaf cuttings that I can, and everything else will just go in the wet stick little container with the rest of them. And actually, just kidding, I left all of the leaf cutting as one top cut. Up next, my Anthurium Clarinervium, and wait until you see what's going on inside this pot. So I've already upgraded its size twice. I received it in a small little 4-inch, and I transferred it to pon kind of immediately, and then when I transferred to pon, I upsized because the roots were so big, and it's been needing an upsize for quite some time. It looks like I have a significantly larger pot here. I'm hoping that this would be pretty easy and straightforward. I've talked about these pots before also. They're made by my friend Winnie. She has a plant shop called The Rare Plant Bay, and she has some of the most beautiful unicorn plants, but she also has merch. She 3D prints these pots, and they come with the inner pot and the wick. And I just love these pots in particular for alocasias and anthuriums because they're taller, and I feel like that's incredibly hard to find. Usually they're a lot more shallow and wider, and that just doesn't work for anthuriums or alocasias really, for that matter. And look at these chunky roots. It's insane. Like I said, this is one of the most impressive root systems I've ever seen. Like, I don't even know how it fit in that pot anymore, and now I'm increasingly concerned it's not really gonna fit in the new pot. And I was right, the roots barely fit. Like, ideally this would be in a pot twice the size of what it is right now, but we're gonna keep it in there because that's all that I have. Now, I've heard that Clarinerviums can shoot off pups, so sometimes like square or rectangular pots work really well for them. So that's something I'll consider for next time, but for now, this is where she's gonna be because this is what I have. These are the pot extenders from Russo Plant Care. I've never used them before. I did have to take a small break to learn how to use them, but it actually was pretty self-explanatory. The part that like sticks up goes towards the top, and that's so that you can add pot extenders on top of pot extenders, so you can stack them, which I think is really smart. And of course, don't forget to peel the film like you would with any other products. And these little tabs at the bottom are for you to get some pins to like pin them down into the soil, but I didn't end up doing that because it actually fit perfectly in the size of the pot. I believe the circumference says it's like 5.5 inches, and yeah, I just kind of dug it in there. By the way, sorry, Hunter is like witching hour running back and forth right now. I ended up loving the way the pot extender looks. So minimal, so sleek, you can barely tell it's there. I low-key kind of feel like I already need an extender on the extender, but I just left it as is for now. Watered with my nutrient-rich cocktail, and I did place it back in my Millsbow my Millsbow wide cabinet, but really it doesn't fit there anymore, so we need to figure out what we're gonna do with him. Next, we are going to tend to my Alocasia Silver Dragon scale. This guy's been struggling for a little bit, and I'm not positive what's going on with him. So he did flower also, so we're gonna chop that off. I think like maybe it might have like a spider mite lingering here or there. I can't really tell, so we're gonna treat him for that too. But we're gonna repot him, get him out of these pots. I really just don't like these pots. They're super flimsy. Again, the clear, just they get so disgusting. And the pot where the plant is actually in is also super shallow. So we're gonna get it out of the pot, look at the roots, see what condition those are in, and kind of move from there. Fortunately, the roots look healthy, so I think it's just a matter of giving it a refresh, cutting off those leaves that are ugly and damaged and dried out, cutting off the inflow, repotting, giving it some new nutrients, and then maybe just staying on top of it a little bit more to make sure that it continues on a path to health. Interesting story about this plant is that I rescued it from the ICU, my local plant shop, Plantitas. You've heard me talk about them a lot, I'm sure. But they have this like rack that they call the ICU. And it's basically like whether it's plants that need a little TLC, or maybe just plants that they've had for a while and didn't sell, but they're like crazy discounted, and that's where this one was. So I got it from the ICU. I transferred it immediately into fluval stratum. I let it root and establish a healthy root system there, and then I transferred to pond, and it was doing well, but then all of a sudden it just got this decline, and I'm blaming this pot with the gross reservoir, but not really sure. So I am repotting it into another pot that has the clear reservoir, but I'm gonna be adding a little bit of drops of, or just like a few drops of hydrogen peroxide to hopefully try to keep that algae away, and hopefully that fixes the problem. Like I said, I'm also gonna spray it down and treat it for spider mites just in case. And I'm really hoping this does a trick because I think out of all of my, well, no, that's not true. I really do like all the dragon scale versions that I have, but I think the super dark one and the silver one are my favorites. I'm so excited about this next one. We are working on my Alocasia Micholitzianas. So if you remember, or if you watched, I divided my big Micholitziana into all individual plants because it was just way too thirsty way too frequently in that pot. And I asked you if I should keep one of the cuttings or not, and you all said yes, and thank you so much because it didn't require a lot of convincing. I really was already feeling attached to it. I want to put this cutting in my office, kind of in that corner with the taniki, and I want to move that Monstera deliciosa over into my living room. So we are going to take care of this Micholitziana today, and what I want to do is I want to kind of just chop it, and I want to regrow the bottom, hopefully into multiple growth points. I did that recently with a variegated fried egg, and I just loved that I got 3 new growth points, so it's like instant bushy plant. And then I will hopefully also root the top cut, and then maybe I can just pop both of those together so it's like bushy and the top cut, and then just place them over in that corner. I think it would just, I don't know. I have this vision and I think it's gonna look great. So that's what we're doing. I removed also the older leaf that wasn't looking too good. And if you remember when I was separating the plant, I accidentally ripped a hole on the newer one, but that's okay. I know that that leaf will help give the plant energy to root quicker, hopefully. Now, the kicker is I'm completely out of fluval stratum, and I'm gonna try and root this in pond. We'll see how it goes. I've never tried to root anything in pond, so I'm curious to know if you have and how it's gone for you. I assume it would go well, but I do have some fluval stratum on the way, so I don't know. If I notice anything funny, I may switch it up into fluval stratum just so that it can build a stronger root system. And yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I put the bottom in a complete humidity dome, and yeah, we'll see. But I'm super excited to get this plant in my office space. I just think the Micholitziana is so beautiful. Now we're moving into the not so fun tasks that I have been avoiding and that are frankly quite pressing. So I'll just be really honest. What happened is, you remember I had the whole spider mite situation. I tried predatory mites, blah, blah, blah. I can link all of those videos if you're interested in seeing what happened. But basically my Alocasia Jacklyn is who I feel was the culprit of bringing spider mites into my office and got into my Millsville white cabinet, etc. When I treated with the predatory mites, the Alocasia Tandarusa is actually now, or Jacklyn, however you know it, had the predatory mites on it. And then when I used the insecticidal to really, or the insecticide to really get rid of them, because the predatory mites kind of worked on some plants but not in all plants, etc. My Tandarusa or Jacklyn had the predatories and they seemed to be working, so I didn't spray her down. However, very quickly she got spider mites again, or they were always there. They were just under control for a second and then they came back, it seemed like, with a vengeance. I really struggled with spider mites this year, but also, you know, I have to be honest and say that I wasn't as on top of treatment as I should have been. And when I saw them come back on the Jacklyn or Tandarusa, I avoided it. Like, I was annoyed because I had been dealing with them and trying to be patient with the predatory mite situation in the office or with other plants. And for a while I was treating like every other week because they were gone, but then they'd pop up in a new plant or they didn't really work, whatever. So when I saw them again on the Jacklyn or Tandarusa, I had already sprayed the insecticide on my Millsville wide, and they were all gone everywhere else, at least as far as I know. But when I saw them again, it was just something I didn't want to deal with, and I put it off, I'm embarrassed to say, for like weeks and probably months, to be honest. And it got so bad. It looked like there was a blanket of webbing all over, especially the older leaf. Also, honestly, part of the reason I just ignored her is because she lives by herself in an area in the living room. But then when I got my Burle Marx Flame Monstera, I placed her like in the same console on the opposite end, and she now has spider mites. So we need to take care of it. Like, this is not okay. And they're so tiny also. Like, I could spread them like walking from one room to the other, or the ceiling fan, or the dogs, or what have you, and it truly is out of control, and I'm embarrassed that I let it get so bad. So we're just gonna take care of it. And even though it only has 2 leaves, and I could easily do either like a DIY treatment or Perfect Plantista that I love and know and works, I'm just going in with the insecticide because I'm just kind of like, I'm over it, I'm sick of it, and I want it done. Now, I can't stress enough how much the insecticide is harmful, not only to pests, but to people, pets, etc. So I spray it in my shower, which I don't know that that's the best, and then clean the shower afterward. But that's why I don't spray it outside, because I don't want to hurt the pollinators, but also I don't want to risk any wind coming at me with it. And I do try to wear like protective gear as best I can. Fortunately, it really isn't messy at all, especially with my pump sprayer. And yeah, I am also gathering a couple of other Alocasia mostly to spray those down just in case. I feel like I've seen 1 or 2 on my Heterophylla, and I keep like just rinsing them off, but I'm making a gallon's worth of this insecticide, so might as well spray any plants that tend to be prone to them, or like the ones where I noticed that the spider mites were more stubborn on. And yeah, like let's get this over with. Yeah, I just want to stress, if this is something that you choose to do, just please, please, please be very careful, follow all of the directions. They also say that you're not supposed to handle the plants until they're completely dry from what you sprayed on them. So I actually, after I spray them, I put them in like tall bins and leave them in there for until they're dry, at least a day. Again, fortunately, this isn't messy at all. The pump sprayer is not messy. That it's pretty easy to do, but yeah, I just went ahead and I sprayed all of those front and back. I included my Hoya polynera, my green one, just because it's recently been dropping a lot of leaves, and it could just be an upsize that it needs, but I figured I already had all of this insecticide like mixed in, so might as well just spray it just in case. It can't hurt, right? Now, because the insecticide is meant to be used on like a commercial level with like crops and stuff, the measurement calls for like 0.4 ounces per gallon. And so anyway, I made a whole gallon, and I have like half of it left. So initially I was thinking I would just gather random plants and spray them. However, the next day, as I was watering plants inside my Millsbo wide, I found spider mites on my Anthurium crystallinum. And interestingly enough, I believe that is the only plant in the cabinet that I didn't spray with the insecticide last time, because I brought it over from my laundry area into the cabinet. So like, it didn't have spider mites to begin with, or at least that I knew of. But then now, if and however new spider mites got in there, they're on the plant that wasn't sprayed with the insecticide. So I just thought that that was really interesting. Also, this is like the very first time, I'll insert the footage, that I can see the spider mites so clearly just with my phone camera. Like, I wasn't expecting them. By the way, I broke my microscope, but that's a conversation for a different day. But yeah, I've never been able to see them so clearly with my phone, which makes me feel like they're huge. They're like on steroids or something. So anyway, since I did find spider mites in there, I ended up just emptying my whole cabinet, took all the plants in the shower, sprayed them all down, and cleaned the cabinet very thoroughly. I also unfortunately found rust along the side of like where I have the weather stripping on the doors. So it's just on the doors, which makes me feel like I can easily, it's not a ton, but still, But I can make a separate video talking about the cabinet and, you know, just what I've noticed now that I've had it for quite some time, and then what I'm doing to fix that, I guess. That was it for part 2. We did some chops, we did some props, we did some upsizing and the pest treatment. The leaves on all the plants that I treated are looking so clean and fresh. The Jacklyn Tandarusa looks so good now, and I am so happy that it finally, I feel like it was dormant for like over 6 months. I got no growth, but it finally gave me a new leaf, which is the one that you saw. But yeah, I'm so glad to have finally taken care of that. I had really been dreading doing that and just like avoidance, and that is not the way to go when handling pests. So don't do this at home. So this brings us to the end of part 2. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. And again, sorry about having to share it with you in this format. I hope that it was okay for you. And stay tuned for part 3 coming really soon. Bye.